We are thrilled to welcome to our symposium today, Dana Chapital with Mohawk Industries, a senior field designer and account executive. And Dana, thank you. You have been joining us throughout much of the day, even despite the time difference from the West Coast to the East Coast. So I think you were up quite early this morning.
Hello, can you guys hear me?
We absolutely can. We can hear you.
Hi, everyone. It is such a pleasure to be here today. I'm excited. I'm grateful to give back to the community. Yes, I have been up early. I have a little one in grammar school. So once we got up, I kind of logged on in my iPad to, hear what was going on. I was able to hear Todd give his presentation, which was so nice just to hear another creative go through, his motions of how he proceeds with his work. There was a lot of inspiration and tips that even I gained from him, and even the tips on just being able to take criticism. I know when I came to school there, both as a freshman and in grad school, man, some of the critiques were harsh, but it really prepared me for the rest of my life, just in personal life and in professional life, to be able to honor someone taking the time to give me either good or challenging feedback, negative feedback. I appreciate it all because it helps makes us better.
And I agree with that. So do you have a presentation you wish to share?
I do have a presentation. I'm on two devices, so we're going to see how this works. I'm broadcasting from my iPad, but I'm going to try and share my presentation. So first of all, of course, my name is Dana Chapital, and I just I thought about if I was in your shoes, and I was in your shoes many years ago, about 16 years ago, coming out of grad school, what would I want to know approaching my textile career? What would have been, some insightful and valuable information for me to go forth, and even what I've learned now in my career that I could share with you guys as far as, how to make this successful, and also giving some boundaries and balance to your professional life. So I will I'll start by telling you a little bit about myself as I go into this side. First of all, I think one of the key things before I go into the 7 tips and takeaways is that I have found from when I started at when it was Philadelphia College of Textiles and Science, that being enthusiastic and positive and just carrying that passion and that conversation with others has led to so many opportunities. People like to feel inspired when you talk about what you do. So if you can carry on in a positive and enthusiastic manner, you just never know what doors that's going to open up down the line, even years later. So please keep that in mind, to just keep that passion in your voice. A little bit about me. I am born and raised from New Orleans, Louisiana. My family is from New Orleans, Louisiana. Most of them is still there. I graduated high school in 1997 and came up to Philadelphia as a freshman to study textile design. I left and actually went back in state to study business, and I received a BS in management from LSU/UNO. I didn't feel quite fulfilled. I always knew that I wanted to be at some point an entrepreneur or have my own business, but I wasn't sure how it was all going to come together. And I'm still trying to figure that out. It was very inspiring to look at the last panel group and just see how they are forging on. And I have many questions there, but I studied business, then came back after I worked for a little bit as an assistant property manager. I came back to Philadelphia, and I think that was 2002 or 3 as a graduate student. And my concentration was in weaving. I still love weaving. Kind of going back to the last couple of presentations, I don't weave as much as I'd like to. It is so cathartic. It's almost like meditation, and being able to weave just inspires and actually gives me energy to do other things. But all that said, I studied weaving and also studied a lot with Brian George with nonwovens. If I could call that a minor or another concentration, I did a lot with him and exploring there. And I was also a TA at the university. And then let's see, I graduated the semester that Marcia came on board. Marcia came on board, I believe she said in January of 2006. And I graduated May of 2006. And from there, I took on a job in Fort Lauderdale as designing hospitality fabrics. And not long after starting that job, I actually had two carpet manufacturers who were interested in me, and I ended up going on board with Brenton's Carpet. So at that time was a UK-based company, and they were here in the US. And when they brought me on board, I actually went on board and trained in Las Vegas, which was one of the best times of my life. I trained in Las Vegas, and then I went to DC and worked on the Marriott account. And then from there, I just kind of bopped around. At that point in my life, I was young, single, and free. And I worked on the Marriott account, then went to Dallas and worked with a couple of large firms there, still with Brenton's. And then in 2009, Brenton's moved me to Los Angeles, or the Santa Monica area, in which I still was designing hospitality carpets, let's say for hotels, restaurants, casinos, cruise ships. So for most of my career, I would say I've been designing for the hospitality industry. When Brenton's went through a couple of ownership transitions starting in 2011, I was offered a position with what's called Bentley Prince Street, and they do more commercial carpet, if you will. And I did a lot of commercial collections for them. And I also did the carpet that if you fly into LAX now, all the carpet that was designed and installed in LAX at this time, even though LAX is going through renovation, I designed that carpet with Bentley. So I was there up until 2012, and I got married and had my son and took a break. And basically in 2014, I came on board with Mohawk as a senior field designer with them also, and went back into the hospitality sector of designing flooring. Not so much commercial, but I've done tons of casinos, hotels, and whatnot around the world. So I've also done some commercial work with Mohawk also, but I work for their hospitality division called Durkin. So I've been with the Durkin side of the business since 2014, and I've worked in both Los Angeles and again in Dallas, and came back to Los Angeles in 2018. And let's see, after a couple of years, then I moved into sales. I would say I needed or was looking for a little bit of a change. I was used to already presenting and working with interior designers and architects, presenting, and the only thing I wasn't doing was just basically giving them prices. So when the opportunity came for a change, especially for what I could do, not in Georgia or where our headquarters was, I went for a sales role. And so I became an account executive about 4 weeks before COVID. So that became very, very fun and challenging, but I'm still basically, I call myself a design consultant because I can still design and still help my customers come up with flooring solutions. And, but at the same time, I can sell products to them. So I'm gonna flip this, the slide and segue on into my 7 tips and takeaways, especially from what I've learned going into the industry and also being in the industry. So I cannot emphasize enough that right now as a student, and even when you go into your career, it is all about networking and marketing yourself. And even I'm still learning that at this stage in my career that I need to do more marketing. And it is It is a challenge, just because you get so caught in the daily grind of the short term of appeasing customers and clients that sometimes you just don't have the time, especially with your personal life, to get to do everything that you would like to do to keep yourself out there. But I'm going to give you some tips to basically, keep yourself out there, keep yourself prominent, and let people know that you exist. As you'll know, with most of your industries, your success will depend on making those connections. You want to make sure you get out there and join professional organizations like NEWH. For me, NEWH is crucial in the hospitality industry. You can even join NEWH as a student. You can join different associations like the Surface Design Association and AIGA. And even local groups like Textile Arts Los Angeles. They all have student level memberships. And those are great opportunities for you to get out there, meet people, see what trade events are going on in the industry, and also have the opportunity of finding a mentor. These are great opportunities to expose yourself to other people who are in the industry. And you never know if that may lead to a job or opportunity to commission some work or any of that. You also want to make sure you also remember and save who you meet, whether you put it in your phone or you keep a journal or something like that, or keep your cards of everyone you meet. At some point, it's going to be crucial later on down the line. And you just, again, always convey that enthusiasm and positiveness and the passion for your designing and what you enjoy doing, whether it's being a colorist or whether it's you love to knit or weave, just always convey that. So moving on to, in a sense, like I said, bleeding over with networking, one of the greatest calling cards in the industry right now is making sure that you take part in competitions. That is just, it's key for industries to be able to see your work. You kind of move to the top of the heap of the pile rather than just submitting a resume. They can actually see your work. You also, in some cases, like the Durkin Discover contest that we do at Mohawk, it's in conjunction with NEWH. So, basically they're promoting and marketing you. So it's not just staying within the company, but it's broadcast at one of the largest industry trade shows, HD Expo in Las Vegas. So the work will be showcased there. And it's just a great way for other textile manufacturers, whether they're fabric manufacturers, surface design, wallpaper. It's a great way for them to be able to see your work and notate who you are and get into contact with you. You'll see that participating in events and competitions like that, it kind of triumphs like what school you went to and just who you know, maybe at a certain company. It basically broadcasts a light on you. You also, as you continue in your career, never stop entering for competitions. You want to do calls for entry. That's actually something I spoke with Marsha earlier this summer about, just how to stay abreast of those calls for entry and staying in the loop with those opportunities, because that's another way of marketing yourself beyond just getting into the industry. Another competition that I wanted to mention that Mohawk does is the Dorothy Waxman International Textile Design Prize. And that's one of they feature that on our blog, and the winners, the finalists, and that's just another great way of getting yourself out there. They promote it on social media, Instagram. It's just a great way to get yourself out there and get those eyes on you. You also want to make sure you form collaborations with people who are starting out and maybe with a new skill set that you don't possess. So I know Philly U or Thomas Jefferson has the fashion design program. Make sure if you have the opportunity to pair up with some fashion designers, work with them in creating some textile designs, pairing up with them. That's another way for you guys to mention each other and collaborate and get more eyes upon your work. Moving into being part of the conversation. This is something I learned on the job also. It was another director who mentioned that it's a great idea when you're part of panels, discussions like today, for instance. That's a great opportunity to be seen and stay in the loop with what's going on in the industry. If you have an opportunity to write articles or blogs about the textile design to demonstrate your knowledge, that's another great way of staying out there. Even if you can approach low-level design podcasts for interview opportunities, that can be a great way to get your name out there. You want to follow and ask other design industry professionals that you admire for feedback. So I know on Instagram, there are textile designers and students who come to me and DM me and ask me to have a look at some of the work or their portfolio or some of the things that they're doing. That's a great way for people to get eyes on you also. And as I said, just make sure you're always, if you can contribute to discussions and panels, and that also comes about with joining some of the industry professional organizations that we talked about, you'll get opportunities to join some of the panels and trade events that they have going on in the industry. Now, another way to keep yourself out there and market yourself is to participate in student portfolio reviews. I know I was just on a panel about not quite 2 weeks ago with NEWH, where we did a student portfolio review, and it was the gamut. We had architects, we had interior design students, we had hospitality design students who just wanted maybe a review of their resume. That's a great way for you to get in the limelight and for potential employers to see your work. And I know many of the industry professionals, after we got off the call, we were just saying how inspired we were to see some of the new work that was coming out. And some of those individuals, right after, they were approached with internships and opportunities to come and work at different design firms. So that's a great way to get, critical feedback on what you're doing and insight on maybe even how you can improve it. But it's also a way of, putting your work out there and for people to see what you have to bring to the table. I saw that Feedback 23 is a student portfolio review process featured by AIGA Philadelphia. So that's something locally you can also look into. So just keep that in mind as far as, again, marketing yourself and getting your work and your face out there. Moving into another way of actually entering the job force where you're looking to try and find a job, you're applying. Sometimes that can seem like your resume and your portfolio is just getting lost in the mix. I found, besides networking, almost all of my jobs came or opportunities in the industry came from someone I knew or working with headhunters. So the way that Brenton's and the other carpet company found me years ago in Florida was through a headhunter, a lady that I work with named Carol Henderson. She approached me. And the great thing about headhunters is they do a lot of the legwork for you. They do a lot of the work for you. They'll even give you pointers on your resume. They'll help tidy your resume up. They'll be able to give you inside information on salaries and other things to make you more marketable to potential employers. Grant Consultants is another headhunter service. Sue is a great contact there. Marco International, I've worked with Penny Powers in the past. All these people are great to, give a call, send an email, send your resume, touch base, let them know what you're interested in and see what opportunities they can actually find for you. And it doesn't cost you anything. Unlike some of the, other types of job recruiters that or entities that may take an upfront fee. Headhunters, they gain their revenue from actually placing you. So they get paid by your potential employer or their client. So they're going to work hard for you because they don't get paid until you get placed. So just keep that in mind. They're going to get your resume to the top of the heap. You know, it's going to bypass a lot of the sorting and the sifting that we talked about. And their networks and their contacts are going to just prove invaluable through your job search and just the opportunity for promotions and just going, you know, into the long-term search. Or not, I shouldn't say long-term search. You should always be searching. That's another thing. You should always be considering other opportunities. Never close the door. That's one of the other things I've learned, that sometimes you can get very comfortable and sedentary in your job, but you don't want to bypass opportunities that might exist that you don't know about. And so it's a good idea to keep that, you know, keep in good contact with various headhunters, as they'll let you know what's going on that's not even being marketed or put out on job boards. So moving into another one, another tip or takeaway that I have found even more recently, that I wish at the early and onset, starting my career, that I would have enforced more boundaries. You know, in the beginning, you want to be agreeable, you want to be, you know, a people pleaser, you know, to get that job. But you definitely, in this world of just continuous interconnectivity, and it seems impossible to disconnect from work because we've got the smartphones and, you know, emails are always coming in. You want to establish that boundary and set healthy boundaries from the beginning, so that you don't incur burnout. You know, I've found that, you know, often as a design professional, I got so caught up in meeting those short-term goals and just appeasing the customer that it left hardly any time for anything else. It was hard to do anything like other competitions or calls for entries or effective marketing for myself. And that's, you know, you don't want to be to the point where you kind of lose sight of some of the things that are also happening in your industry. So it's good to have those boundaries so you can still weave, you know, have 10 minutes of weaving so you can stay inspired and stay, you know, stay motivated and stay true to your passion. What else? There's a great article, if you guys want to check out, by Career Contessa, and she talks about 8 tips on setting healthy boundaries at work. You also want to just stay abreast. You know, having that time and setting those boundaries for yourself allows you to, you know, invest and discover new techniques, you know, in the textile design world or the surface design world. It allows you to maybe take part of in workshops and just other classes and tools in your industry that, if you're overwhelmed with work, sometimes, and also with your personal life, if you get married and have children, it becomes, if you're just a workaholic, it becomes difficult to really stay abreast of what's going on. So that's what I have to say about setting your boundaries, but it's really important to, you know, set that from the beginning and get in that rhythm so that, you know, you stay even. Again, ending out with marketing yourself. At this time as a student, there's so many things that you can take part in to get yourself out there, such as, you know, you could actually self-commission your own projects, if you will, do your own surface design products or projects where you can actually put that online. Create an online website of your portfolio. I know a lot of people are doing that. It's a great way to kind of give an idea of something you would do and just inspire and excitement about some new opportunities. Let's see, when creating your own online website, you'll find that it's easy. There's so many different templates that you can use, such as Canva and whatnot, that can help you easily set up that portfolio. And another thing that I found, many of us are on Instagram and TikTok, but you also want to make sure you set up a profile on LinkedIn if you haven't already done so. LinkedIn is a great way to connect with industry professionals, and the same videos that you're, in a sense, are posted content that you're putting on Instagram, you can also integrate onto LinkedIn, which can help bring eyes to your work and work opportunities. It's also a great idea to keep in good rapport and communication with your faculty members, your academic council. You never know when you may need to touch base with them. You know, they have a lot of industry contacts beyond just when you're finishing from school, but also when you are in the work field for 10 or more years, and maybe you're looking to, you know, pivot your career. They are a great resource to keep in contact with, and not just your faculty members, but also keep in contact with your classmates. You know, and these days that's so much easier to do with social media platforms, but you just want to make sure you keep in contact with all these people. It's a great way for you to network and to just continuously market yourself. So those are my 7 tips and takeaways. I welcome any questions, or if you want to send a message or DM me on Instagram. Here's my contact information as far as my personal Gmail account, and also my Instagram account if you want to DM me there. And I'm also, of course, on LinkedIn.
Dana, that was fantastic. Thank you. I have pages of notes from your presentation. That was amazing.
That was a lot. I hope I didn't go too fast. I was trying to get it all out there. There were so many ideas in my head and I had to kind of consolidate, but hopefully that I just thought about, you know, when I was there, what do I wish I would have known, you know, back in 2006. And one of the main things is that I just wish I would have continued to market myself more effectively. That's the biggest thing. Networking hasn't been so hard. I do a lot of trade shows, I travel a lot, but just the marketing piece, you have to market yourself and keep yourself out there.
And so I have a follow-up question to that. So how do you balance marketing yourself as a design consultant for Mohawk versus marketing the other parts of your creative abilities, the rest of your creative self? Do you focus on one and not the other, or if you talk a little bit about that?
That's been a challenge. I mean, I know for me, setting up a professional Instagram account, aside from my private or my personal Instagram account, really helped me market some of and I need to do a better job of this, and this is something that is evolving for me, but marketing the projects that I've actually done throughout the years. I'm still working on that, and that's these days there's TikTok and all the reels and all these things where you can put really enticing videos together that really grabs an audience that you would have never even thought of. But I've found that having different social media platforms has really helped me with marketing. So I've got my professional Instagram account, which is Dana Chapital. Years ago, I started a weaving boutique, kind of in between having my son and going back to work, the Indigo Isle. And I still have that Instagram account. Excuse me, I haven't done as much on that one lately, but that's where I do still just some personal weaving and things like that, and post from time to time. I'll be honest, it's been a little while since I've posted anything there again, because it is still a challenge of forming those boundaries. Since I set the precedent in my career of being a workaholic, people expect things from me. And that's why I'm saying, set those boundaries from the beginning, because people they have a certain expectation if you continue working till 11 o'clock at night. So the other way of marketing myself, which I'm still looking into, that you and I have even discussed, is calls for entry. It's just staying out there And again, it's just a challenge of balancing and finding that time and space to be able to create that work so that I can submit.
Well, and it's interesting because you've talked early on in the presentation today, and then throughout and just now, you've spoken about both balance and boundaries. So a question that came in from one of our students is, how, as a young designer starting out, how do you set those boundaries? Like, how, if you feel that you need to do the work that's being assigned to you to either get ahead or to be successful in your company, how do you set those boundaries?
I would say, you can ask questions at the beginning. What you can ask your potential employer, or when you're interviewing, what are the expectations? How what are the work hours, and how long do they really expect you to answer emails and thing afterwards? And you can tell them, my cutoff time will be 6 o'clock, or my cutoff time will be 7 o'clock. They will respect you for saying that up front. It may seem intimidating because you definitely want to get the job, but I'll tell you what, setting that boundary and showing that confidence, still expressing that enthusiasm, that passion, that positivity, they're going to respect you for it. And they're going to actually see you as a leader for enforcing that boundary, than just kind of going along with the flow of whatever they give you, you kind of take. So they'll respect that. So keep that in mind. And again, check out the article that I mentioned by Career Contessa. She's got some great tips on how to have those intimidating conversations. She's got some really wonderful tips on how to handle that.
I can tell you, we've definitely made a note of that. We will be looking for that when we finish the session today. So next question, relative to finding time. So as a student, if you can put yourself back in the mindset of being a student, but I think it's not any different really than where you are today with a very busy professional life and personal life. So how do you find the time? Let's say you're working a job and as a student and you're a full-time student, how do you find the time to do things like enter competitions? If it's not required, why would I do it?
You would do it because you're looking long term, and you're also, I find as a creative, one of the things I miss right now, especially going into sales, there's a part of my soul that is not being nourished, by putting that creativity out there. There's something that is magical, like just even saying it, when I would sit at the loom, just holding yarns, throwing the shuttle back and forth, there is something magical that happens that you just feel fulfilled, and it is hard to find that time. It's something that I'm still struggling with, especially being a mom, at this point, being a single mom and working. But as Todd said earlier, make lists. That was so true. I mean, I am a list junkie, but I make lists, and I try to make a list. I make lists of what I want to accomplish for that week, and then break it out by day. I'm also a big researcher. My mother was a biochemist, and I guess it was just infused in my blood, or my DNA, that I like to get out there and research. So I also like to see what calls for entry or competitions or things are happening in the industry. So I'm a research junkie also. So, I do find time in the day actually while I'm working, because I'm also doing a lot of research for my clients, where I'll just kind of do some research for myself so that I can stay abreast of what's going on. And I keep in contact with people in the industry. So that's another great thing of being involved with like NEWH and some of these other design organization or professional organizations. You intrinsically become aware of some of the things that you can get involved in. And it's also great because often those people who are in those professional organizations, they're also my clients in my case. So it's a 2-for-1. Does that answer?
It does. And what I'm hearing you say is, this isn't exactly what you're saying, but what I hear you saying is pay yourself first.
Yes.
Or don't forget, don't forget.
Don't forget.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I see that Becky's adding to the chat some great links, the Career Contessa and also about NEWH. So thank you, Becky, for doing that and being on top of
Thank
that.
you.
So you mentioned that when you were in school in the graduate program, you did some work in nonwovens with Brian George, with Professor George. So can I imagine that some of our students who are with us today don't know much about nonwovens? Could you tell us about the work you did and what led you down that path?
That's a great question. To be honest, ever since I found out about textiles, I've just been called to it. And I like challenging new frontiers or finding out. I think earlier this morning, Becky said something about just discovering unknowns or just being drawn to that, researching. And I was intrigued by a couple of things with the class with Brian and at that time, Brittany Whitman. We were trying to find a way to use these scraps of the leftover yarns. You know, how could we take what was, in a sense, I hate to say trash, you know, what was being thrown away, or just the little bits of what was on cones and fibers, you know, left of skeins and things like that. How could we make that into something aesthetically pleasing? And it was just this wonderful challenge to forge in a direction that had not, it seemed like it hadn't been tapped into. So that was, and I was truly drawn to it. And there was a lot of research and discovery that came from it. And in some interesting, and I say serendipitous way, what I learned in nonwovens is actually translated to the carpet design industry. Both wovens and carpet kind of exist in the same plane because of how they're made. So a lot of what we did with some of the nonwovens with Brian George, was we did a lot of I'm forgetting the word, but kind of like punch through using those scrap yarns.
Needle punching, perhaps?
Yes. And
Yeah.
that same process is almost like what we do in creating carpet. The whole punch, as far as with Mohawk, with tufted carpet, you're punching through a backing. And that information of what I learned there was able to naturally translate into gaining the carpet job. So a couple of things, you know, having the woven background and understanding pixel for pixel in designing that on the computer, but also understanding what happened in the tufting process or the nonwoven process, it made me a more valuable candidate for the industry. And that's something else I should also touch upon that I didn't think of until you're just asking me. This kind of segues out of nonwovens, but one of the things that made me stand out, and I had many potential employers tell me this even while I was at Philly U, before I graduated, I had many job opportunities and offers, especially in New York and whatnot, because I had a rare combination, as they used to tell me, of I had a business degree and a textile design degree. So they told me that put me at the top of the heap, because they wanted someone who was business minded, who was thinking about the numbers and supply and demand, but at the same time had the creative background. So I'm not saying that you need to do business, but keep that in mind of, I don't want to say odd pairings, but just pairings of disciplines that will be marketable, give you, make you more marketable in the industry. So, you know, if you have an interest or a passion in something else and it doesn't seem like it quite relates to textiles, you never know how it can come together. And another just by chance thing is my my minor in undergrad was hospitality, just by chance. So here it is. I've been in the hospitality industry since 2007, hospitality design industry. Just by chance. I would have never thought that studying business and hospitality, restaurant, how that would have combined with textiles. But it in some way, as Becky said much earlier this morning, textile touches almost every part of our lives. So in some way, those oddities may come together, even if you decide that you want to, let's say you studied anthropology, you never know. You might be able to go on excavations and determine, how some Egyptian or other, textiles were made thousands of years ago, and that it may come together that way. You just never know. But textiles touch every part of our lives.
That's brilliant. It makes me think a couple of things. One, and you might have seen them when you're on campus, that we have in our collection at the Design Center across the street. We have Coptic textiles, which are from between the 4th and 7th century, which to me is amazing that we still have these so old textile fragments, which I just kind of love that. I love that sense of history. But it's also remarkable how both your undergraduate degree, your undergraduate minor, your graduate degree, and then also some of the specific coursework you did as a graduate student, how that all really came together to lead you down this career path, even if at the time you didn't see that this is the direction everything's leading you.
Right.
So a question, a follow-up question. You shared that you had started after high school, you started in textile design as a freshman and then ended up switching and going into business. What led you to textile design in the first place? Because it's a pretty unique choice.
It is. And not many people, especially in New Orleans, knew about textile design. It's interesting. My mother, when I was younger, I love color. To this day, I still love color. I love bright colors, so I was always into color, painting, artsy fartsy, and my parents were very logical. My mother was a biochemist. My father worked for oil and gas. And they were like, you better figure it out because we're not supporting a starving artist. But my mother would let me redecorate my room. And in my mind would kind of envision, it would just paint out what my room I wanted it to look like. I would see the color of the walls, the wallpaper, the drapery, the bedding, the pillows. I could envision it all. But when I went to the mall or the stores, the department stores, it didn't exist, and it would frustrate me. And this was from when I was like 8 years old, my son's age. It really frustrated me, but I would say to my mom, who makes this stuff? But she didn't know. She didn't, I don't know. I want to design the bedding so I can have what I want to have. Well, for years, it went on, and I still didn't know what that person was called, but two things actually happened. My mother worked for the USDA, and they had a whole textile research wing. Okay, they did a lot of cotton research. Okay, and so they had to take your daughter to work day, and I went, and they had all this cotton, and I was just drawn to it. I can't even explain it to you. I was just naturally drawn to trying to understand how fiber was made, how it became a yarn. And this was just boring, naturally colored cotton where they're testing for other things. And we went into the part of the facility where there were the power looms. And it was just like the power looms were just speaking to my soul. Like they were weaving, just like I said, just the most boring, research cloth, canvas cloth. And I just said, I want to tell that machine what to do. I know what I want it to do. And I still didn't know what that person was called. I think about 3 weeks later, I was taking home economics at the time. I don't know if people still take home economics, but I was taking home economics, and I think it was just the universe destiny. I was taking my book out of my bag and putting it on the desk, and it opened to a page to a lady who designed bedding. You know how they would have the career write-ups in the books, and she was a textile designer, and it was just like it lit up my world. And I remember going home, I'm about to have tears. I remember going home, telling my mother, I know what I want to be. I'm going to be a textile designer. And she's like, okay, what, I don't know what you're telling me, but you seem like you know, so you need to figure out where you're going to learn that and where you're going to go to school for that. I know nothing about textile design. So she, told me to go talk to my school counselors, and even my counselor is like, I don't know what you're talking about. He's like, and this is, in the infancy of the internet. He's like, you see those books up there? Why don't you just look up textiles or something? And I looked up textiles, and I saw that at the time, Philadelphia College of Textiles and Science was the first college in the US, and it was ranked #1. And I'm like, well, if I'm going to do this, I'm going to go to the #1 school in the nation for it. So I was just set from that moment on. While many of my other friends went to other big university, Ivy League, I knew I wanted to come to Philadelphia and study there. And even when I came, it was just like it was meant to be. To be honest, I left after my freshman year, not because I didn't I loved what I was studying. I loved Peggy Gutman, Professor Bart, Nancy Howard, all those people. But it was a big cultural shift from a New Orleans girl, and the weather and everything. And while I had a partial scholarship in Philly, I had a full ride in state. And so I went back in state, and I guess in my heart, I knew I would go back at some point. But it panned out in 2002 or 2003. I came back and finished my passion.
Well, it's one of those, it's another story of how that your path wasn't necessarily a pure linear path, but all of it clearly has made you the person that you are today. And again, I think fate comes in. You need to prepare yourself for the opportunities by doing all of the things you shared with us today, by networking and by getting your name out there and thinking about all the ways that you can share your passion with a wider audience so people know about you. But all of that came together to make you the designer and the person that you are.
Yes, it did.
So
Thank you.
Yesterday, a group of us had this wonderful opportunity to go to a Mohawk Waterways mobile showroom.
Oh, you went to the showroom. Oh my gosh. What did you guys think?
Super exciting. My colleague Jen, who is here on the call with us, Jen found it and organized it for us. And
okay,
she waved and went away. So
I can see Jen on my computer screen. Hi, Jen. I'm glad you guys went. We had it here in the beginning in Los Angeles, and it was walking into the showroom. You did not feel like you were in a truck. It was amazing. Did you guys get to see the new collections and Data Tide and experience the story?
Yeah, we did. We got to see, and like you said, it was hard to imagine. We couldn't believe we were standing in a semi.
Right.
But it was great. It was really nice. I'm glad we got the chance to do that.
I'm glad. Was Royce there?
No, Royce was at Neocon.
Oh, that's right. Yes, all the design directors, they're all at Neocon this week.
Yeah, she'll be visiting us next month though.
Okay, awesome. Royce is great.
Yeah. So that was a really lovely opportunity, and to see not only the brand new Mohawk product, but also to see Knoll Textiles and Phil's Felt and Doll Tile, such a great opportunity for our students.
That's awesome. That is wonderful that you guys got to see it. How serendipitous that you guys went to the truck yesterday, and here I am. I wasn't paying attention to where the truck was, I guess, this week on the road, but I should have asked you guys about that if you had a chance to go.
Yeah, it was just a really lovely opportunity, and again, a chance for our students to do a bit of networking with people in the business. So yeah, so all of that comes into play. So a question from one of our students is, what recommendations do you have if a student wanted to identify a mentor, somebody to give them some feedback, some some feedback either on their work, whether it's their portfolio or their social media presence, how would a student go about identifying somebody to reach out to?
Earlier, that was talked about as far as looking into mentors. I would say I've had a couple of students that I don't even know who are on the other side of the world, or like in England or in India. They'll just DM me on social media platforms and just straight out ask me, and I don't mind giving my feedback or staying in connection with them. But if you're looking for someone to be local, to be near, I think it's really a great idea. Again, going back to joining the professional organizations, you can meet someone in person. You can feel whether that they have the energy that you vibe with, that you can connect with, and you just get you really get a sense of their personality in person, whether you can have honest discussions with them. So I think, my personal opinion, even my own mentors have come from joining organizations and meeting people organically that way. I think there can't be enough said, especially since and during this pandemic, about meeting people the old-fashioned organic way and how that contributes just to your well-being, but also just, for your profession. So I think personally, that's the best way to find a mentor. But I find that people in our industry, in the textile design industry, are just authentic people. You're going to find good people, whether they went to, Thomas Jefferson or Philly U or SCAD. I find that we are very genuine and authentic individuals who are always, when we hear that someone else is a textile designer, there's just this natural, gravitation, magnetic, even out here, there's a lady who I didn't realize she was a textile designer. She's a wallpaper sales rep. And it was another mutual sales rep who put us into contact. And it was just, we naturally bonded. And then as we're talking, we both found out that we were textile designers originally. And it's just like, there's something to be said about people in our discipline, that we're always willing to naturally help one another. So just make sure you get out there and, join the Surface Design Association and things like that, so that you can meet other people in your locale. Go on to Instagram and see what else is locally in your area and join some of those. Many of the student memberships, especially with COVID right now, I believe they're free in these organizations. So that's a great resource for you to meet people in the industry.
I very much appreciate your comment about this happening in sometimes more organically, the more old-fashioned way, but really being able to check out somebody's energy. I think that's a fantastic comment. Yeah. And
it rings true.
I agree. There's a lot of positivity and kind of genuine people genuinely want to help each other succeed in our business. So
yes, we do.
Well,
So
Dana,
if you guys have any questions, I know I'm way out here on the West Coast, but if you have any questions or want some feedback, I'm definitely here. You can feel free to reach out to me. Whatever resources I have, or other tips or techniques that I haven't mentioned, I'm happy to share with you guys. Another thing I wanted to say, and I forgot to say while going through the tips and techniques, something recently that I found really helps, besides the contacts that you'll meet, your clients can also be a great resource for you. You never know when they're going to recommend you for a job or some opportunity that you had no idea existed. So it's just a good idea to keep a good rapport with everyone you come into contact with.
Thank you so much, Dana. That was a brilliant presentation. We love you sharing your positive outlook and your wonderful enthusiasm and passion with our audience. So thank you so much for returning and doing this for us.
You're welcome. And I hope that I've helped someone out there. And it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much. Very inspiring today.
Thank you, and thank you to everyone who has joined us throughout the day for our Textile Design Symposium. Please stay in touch with us via social media. It's the best way to know what's going on in our textile design programs, and we hope to see you all on campus in the near future. All right, thanks so much. Take care, everyone.